We're on. Hello, Lisa Star. So great to see you
Um,
again.
yeah, I mean, it's nice. No time, no space if you're watching these as a series. And then for everyone else, we've been living a full life for 28 days.
Yes, full life and full movement, and very special times that we're living in these times. So lots is happening between each and every month that we meet. And for our new audience, just want to introduce you to Lisa Star, 26-year experienced dream spell calendar and 13 moon calendar teacher and explorer. And I'm very privileged to be able to share this series of broadcasts with you and teachings on the 13 moon calendar as I journey through my learning and studying of the 13 moon calendar in my life and how it shows up in my personal life. I got the chance to also talk to you about every month and go through this sequence along with you, and it's really a blessing for me. So thank you again for being with me here. And this time we're talking about the resonant moon, the seventh of 13 moons. The middle point, if we look at it this way, and a very significant point in which things are getting really real. We can really start to see the processes that have been building up during the past 6 months starting to really resonate and show up. And and we're gonna embark on a journey of learning and investigating how this time of the year shows up in our physical life, spiritual life, emotional life, collective. And I can say from my perspective that the resonant tone has always been something I'm continuously learning. Like there's some other tones I feel like I've kind of realized them, understood them pretty clearly for myself, and I can really explain them clearly. But when it comes to the resonant tone, I notice I'm finding kind of a new way, new words to describe this movement because it's something a bit different in my feelings and how I experience it, also meeting it through people and also journeying through it. So, first thing I wonder, and I'd love to hear from you, what's your experience of the resonant tone? How do you feel it in your personal life and your emotional side? How do you see it in other people?
I think I have a long answer. When you were introducing me, I somehow wanted to leap in just to say aloud that I knew about this calendar since I was about 15. My mother was a student of Jose Arguelles, so I was exposed to it really young, but at a time of life where I thought she was just so boring and dumb or whatever, teenage perspective holds. And so then I came back to it when I was going through a divorce when I was 30, and then my daughter was the one who was really interested. Her grandmother showed her something, and then my 5-year-old daughter thought it was cool. And then I committed to help her learn it, and then it became all mine. And my daughter is a skeptic, and so on. But I wanted to say it that way because it's just been with me much longer than I sometimes account for. And I think, that might be true of some other people who ran into someone looking up their birthday at some point in the past, but now is the moment when you're engaging with it more directly and meaningfully. And the reason I wanted to just point that out is because when I was getting divorced, I also entered like a little school to study to be a clairvoyant, which is a psychic.
Hmm.
And I've always been super sensitive to energy, but not like a seer. And so the school really shaped me to be able to kind of like wrangle my sensitivities into like something more professional or something that you could rely on, psychic ability. And that's resonant to me. That's why I'm telling this little story, this anecdote, because I ended up creating a website and calling it Resonant Truth, which was a direct commentary on how the resonant tone is so easy for me to understand compared to some of the others, because it just means to me a time when you're way more heightened in your awareness, and that the word resonant and kind of the action of being attuned is when you like dump out a lot of the mental fracas, like this like rattling mental obsession about your intellect, and become a channel so that what you're kind of absorbed by, even in your mental capacity, is extrasensory,
Mm.
you know, and that's
Yeah.
cool. So that's how I experience resonant. And I've just felt that like try to get me to understand self-existing, or sometimes galactic and planetary. It's like more of a like, what is that again?
Mm.
So,
Nice. I love that. That's a really great connection, and it's true. I didn't even think about it before we met up that your entire enterprise, I'll call it, is resonant truth.
mhm,
So it's really your channel of bringing this knowledge through you, and also it made it a bit clearer for me just to listen to you right now. And for me, I really relate with the word inspiring that Jose Aquiles
mhm,
put along with the resonant tone, because I notice about resonant people that they naturally really inspire me in a very simple and natural way. It's like when I'm around them, they inspire me in the direction of their sign. So any resonant sign, I really feel like they're teaching me without doing anything and they're kind of inspiring me, like resonating it like in circles around them into me, and then I could really feel the quality of the sign they are through their presence, and I can really see how they're channeling people. And over the years, giving over, I don't know, over at least over 1,000 map readings, I've really recognized, and I've been giving the information in this way and telling resonant people that they're naturally channelers. And
mhm.
I think pretty much, at least I'm not exaggerating, 99% would immediately say, yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And I found that amazing. Like firstly, I always find I'm amazed on how precise the dream spell calendar is showing up in this reality, in this life. It's kind of like real magic, real life magic showing up and every time revealing itself. Um, but it is amazing that people, without even knowing about these signs and this wisdom, that are born resonant, which is connected with the quality of channel and channeling, are actually channelers, and they actually know what channeling is.
Mhm. Yeah, when I was looking at birthdays when I was starting, I was kind of obsessed with that. I still have like a diagram of the Zolkin with all these names of like parents from my children's school and plumbers that worked on my house. And I enjoy seeing who's resonant, who isn't like a super spiritual, new agey person in their demeanor, but when you hang out with them, you're like, no, they're connected to something way out, but they're also very grounded because you know how like sometimes when you're meditating, the point is like draw in the energy from above and then drop a grounding cord into the earth. And so you're literally visualizing like a beam that travels from the cosmos to the center of the planet, a channel that you're in the midst of. You're like part of it. I just feel like resonant people and resonant times have that as their birthright.
Yeah.
I, I did want to also add that I got very interested in the word inspire as meaning that you have spirit in you.
Mm,
You know, that would be the etymology of it.
nice.
And so it's kind of nice that what people are channeling is not like clunky, chunky, dark force. They're channeling spirit, is what I observe.
Mm, I really relate with that too. And and how do you recognize the resonant moon in the year. Why do you think that it is the seventh moon out of the 13 that it's the resonant?
Well, like I want to always go backward that the Maya had these numbers that were dots and bars, and they also, there must have been some preconception for Jose Arguelles to describe it as a wave form when he calls it a wave spell. He must have either been channeling entirely or seen something in the hieroglyphs or read something that was remaining from their codices about the movement and shape of the count, that it wasn't just like a line or a pile, and that he must have from that drawn that the seventh, which is a dot and two bars, it doesn't look like a channel, etc., meant something like that. But the way that I have seen synchronicity is that because it's the seventh day and we have a seventh day in, I don't know if it's in Judaism, this, I mean, it is in the Old Testament, but like on the seventh day, God rested. So the seventh day is this emblem of taking a break to be reverent. And whether I'm influenced by that, I don't have like a religious upbringing, but whether that's kind of lodged in me or not, I just think that's exactly what we do in the wave spell, is that we come to the resonant tone for a day, if it's a 13-day wave spell, but here a 28-day wave spell. And it isn't about seeing or pushing for action. It's kind of like taking a break from perceiving that things are moving quickly, because they are moving, but they're kind of from the rhythmic tone, from the rhythmic moon, a little automated or set in place. We set the rhythm so it kind of functions like a heartbeat. It's stable. And then we take this pause to deepen our presence with what is.
Hmm. And then when
And
we
that
are
that's
in, yeah,
Well, no, I think I interrupted you. You're probably saying more important thing, but just like, and that I was going to say, and that is very necessary for a human being to learn how to have a pause. And what is that? It's for inspiration and spirit to come into us.
mm. And to resonate the process we've made in the previous 6 days, kind of to let it vibrate within us and kind of move through us outside of us.
Yeah. I mean, is the thing about the 28-day moon. We're in it. We're in the middle when we record this. I'm often each year learning about it as it happens, that I don't retain a full awareness of what it feels like. But 28 days is so excellent for exploring each tone. Once you've really followed the 13 moon wave spell, you get so much information to help with your 13-day wave spells. But so far, it just does feel like kind of a release from human purgatory to have my soul, myself, be stimulated by something much larger again, being a channel. To me, I've almost forgotten about what the year arc is. I'm on a kind of a vacation from it. Not entirely, but the tonality is just sort of like another dimension drops in and kind of relieves me of my mortal coil.
Yeah, yeah, I can relate to that. That's how I'm feeling more and more with the 13-day wave cells because it's so encoded already in my natural movement of how I just function in the world that I usually just realize synchronicity. I don't need to think about it or to kind of fix my awareness on it in order to recognize it. It's just kind of talks to me. It shows up, and I'm understanding that for you with the 13 moons, it's already working this way after all the years that you've been aware of the movement and how it's and following how it's showing up in your life. And this is also connecting to for me with the resonant tone of just like letting it flow through us, because I perceive it as the middle point of the movement of the wave. So for me, I always used to find myself describing it like it's the top part of the wave when we kind of can see the other waves. We can see that we're a part of a larger movement. And
Mm.
this is the point where we're the closest to the heavens in the movement if we're looking at it from a peak perspective. And so then the information can come to us, like the center, the main message of the wave spell can come through us, and we can
Mm.
realize what's happening, what process we are going through in this time, in this wave. And the resonant for me, it's when I look at it from a 13 moon perspective, so I'm really looking around at the processes that are showing up around, and where I am in the world, in my personal development processes, and I really see like I'm touching the core of the things that I've been kind of spinning around them. This is like the main channel of information right now. I'm coming near it, and the information that's coming, it's coming new. Like I'm channeling, because channeling is something that we can only do when we're connected to the here and now, to this moment, because it's fresh info coming down to us through our being attuned to the spirit and connected to the earth and being a channel. And so I can really, when I look at it this way, it also gives me, I can rest in it. This really connects with the Sabbath, with the Shabbat, the seventh day,
Mm.
which in the Jewish tradition, it's the day to rest. I mean, we have a 6 day work week. We work 5.5 days we work till Friday afternoon, and then we're preparing the possibility to rest on Saturday. We're working so we can rest. We're not working so much. We're not meant to work outwardly to give to the world, but on the sixth day, kind of focus more on working in like cleaning the house, cooking. So on Saturday, we can do nothing for most of the day and just be, and attune ourselves with what is, and with spirit, and with our hearts and our homes and our families. So I really like this concept. I personally, being Jewish, the 7 day cycle is really, it's really embedded deeply in our DNA. It's pretty much what's kept this tradition alive, being spread out all over the world over generations and generations. This number seven cycle has been the main core. So on the seventh moon, I'm really feeling, on the one hand, it feels very intense to be inside the channel as well. To be a channel, I know people that channel, when they channel for continuous periods of time, they say it's really tasking on the body,
Mm.
and on the and it's tiring to be channeling continuously. So there's like some kind of a grace when we're inside this resonant channel. Like if I look at resonant people that are continuously kind of inspiring from within themselves, inspiring people outwardly, like inspire, like from the inside, kind of spiriting around them.
Yeah.
It's it comes in my mind like it's hard work to be a person that's inspiring all the time, because it's a continuous communication between the inner and the outer, that's, you can't really control it. It's it's happening. It's happening through you. So it's kind of this both like a coin with two sides. On the one hand, there's energy flowing, so there's this connection that you don't need to do anything to maintain. But that's the paradox of this world. Like we're all spiritual beings connected to spirit. This is what makes us unique as humans. But to maintain this spiritual connection alive in this world, we actually have to work for this world. We have to do things in this world. Even if we're monks living in a monastery and practicing our spiritual connection as a everyday life, we still have to avoid certain things, avoid temptations, avoid distractions. It's still some kind of a work form. Like it takes energy and effort.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that the resonant moon is when it isn't hard to be meditative or psychic or inspired by divinity. Like that's kind of what I think about each of the tones will give us like they will empower certain parts of what we do or how we struggle or so if you struggle to be organized, the rhythmic moon takes over and it makes it easy. And if you
Mm,
struggle to be attuned and meditative, the resonant moon just makes it easy. And I want to point out that the whole structure of the Gregorian calendar is to have New Year's at the kind of the end of the rhythmic moon. And then all this New Year's resolution resolve to be like a better person, cleaner, basically, more pure after maybe the debauch of a bunch of holidays and drinking and eating and festivity to maybe more solitary and reflective always happens in the resonant moon.
mm,
And I just find that almost comical, right? Because when people are like, I want to do this year, I'm like, well, you're totally inspired right now because you're channeling the divine. And we'll see how it goes, in your March and
mm,
April, etc. But we can just culturally see that people become like spiritually introspective right now. So it's natural. And I also like pointing out it is the midpoint of the year. It's like mid-year. And our recording is actually like just a day off of the literal mid-year of this 13 moon year. And that's always an interesting perspective of opposition between the Gregorian calendar and this natural time Mayan calendar, is that they are almost literally opposite in their origin date. So I think that's just another thing to be reflective and attuned to.
yeah, yeah. I wonder how it serves us in our lives to see it in this way that kind of like the dream spell gives us this middle point, this very clear symmetry and this very clear middle point, like the inhale and the space between, and then the exhale, and then the inhale and the space between, and the exhale. And I wonder what kind of how this perspective kind of shows up also in the 13 moon calendar, like what it gives us to recognize this middle point.
Well, okay, so last time we talked about Alon. I'm speaking to the listener. We discovered that Alon and I kind of have a different historic viewpoint of what is the highest point of the wave spell. And I just want to speak to that because you're a white mirror, and so when you talk about symmetry and kind of like the reflective side, like this, the seven is sort of could be perceived as the peak of some kind of experience of the 13 because it's the middle, and there would be symmetry kind of in the rising, and then, like you said, the exhalation out. And I see it more that we again are kind of liberated from thinking about the process of rising off the earth, our sentient lives, very oriented to gravity as human beings. We don't fly, but a wave spell is the journey to enlightenment, which means toward the heavens, and that for me, it peaks at planetary because that's when we identify we are planetary. We are not celestial when we're incarnated. And so that's kind of the linguistic clue to me.
Mm,
And that a wave would take a long time to build, but it collapses very quickly. So it isn't really a
mm,
symmetrical
mm,
shape. Just putting that inward because I guess I'm just very conditioned at this point, just like we discussed about the seven, that it's an arduous journey to follow wave spells. To follow them for 13 days is a much more heightened sensation, but it always has, I think, conditions that can be challenging, or include suffering and release from suffering. Like that's why I teach, that's why I follow, is because it is a way of regulating my expectation as a human being against everything being great all the time or everything being terrible all the time. You know, these personality quirks that humans develop where you aspire for it to always be good, and then you might be crushed into thinking it's never good. And so to be in wave forms is to recognize the peaks and valleys are natural, but to organize your life around wave forms is to kind of develop this rhythm where you're not as much caught off guard by peaks and valleys. You sort of understand them fluidly. And then to move into the year, it's a much slower arc. And that sort of stretched out quality, I think, is perfect to speak about in the Resonant Moon, which in and of itself is sort of to me a peak of being stretched out languorously, experiencing time
mm,
without a goal,
mm,
without knowing what's in the future or necessarily paying attention to what's in the past. And when we get to the galactic moon, I would say there is integration of the past into the present moment, but that the resonant moon is like a clean out. You did all this work. If you reflect backwards, which is a good thing to do mid-year, we had like the magnetic moon where we were delivered this giant karmic purpose for the year, and the lunar moon where we found out how it includes a challenge that we're going to have to grow through. You know, we're going to have to resolve. And then being of service was like a download for 2 moons, our form of service as well. And then in the overtone moon, we kind of got finally like this power surge so we could keep going, even though we had already done so much growing and learning, exposing ourselves to new problems. And then in the rhythmic moon, to me, it's about steadying the overtone harness of empowerment, just like getting that so it's functional so we can keep climbing. And here again, it's like, I don't know, I have this image of like a old time ship captain who's gotten everything logged on the, the maps and set the course and then can rise up to the top deck and just look out at the actual waterscape, instead of being in his head, just being in the grandeur,
yeah,
and that it's kind of an escape from the tedium and the sort of the challenging thing about humanity is that we have tasks every day to survive, and we kind of get a pause. And I mean, I want to point out you're in India, so you're like in this talk about a center point of the planet's sort of orientation to the magnitude of meditation, and being expansive like that.
yeah, yeah. It's beautiful. I think one of the most beautiful things about sharing this learning slash teaching with you is that from from receiving your perspective, I could see a more colorful and elaborate way of looking at my own life and how I perceive what's happening and what's happening in my life and what's happening around me in these times. And I think it's really beautiful, the contrast. It's not so contrast, just difference between the white mirror, very symmetrical tendencies that I have of putting things in a very clear order that's you can't look at it from different directions. Like this is the order.
Mhm.
And your blue storm perspective, which was much more watery and kind of renewing itself
And chaotic.
and chaotic, exactly, and chaotic. Um, and the way you see it, which is for me very blue storm, it's very like there is a cycle. There is some kind of movement that's repetitive that we can follow, but it's continuously renewing itself. It's never the same, which is why I love meeting blue storms and explaining to them about the concept of blue storm because it's always I think it is I can say 100% when I meet people that are blue storms and I start to explain to them about the blue storm, then it's always different than any of the other seals because it's talking about the big picture that contains the big picture that contains the small movement, And it's continuously changing, also and transforming, also in this very moment as we speak. And to be a human being that can grasp this ongoing, endless movement of evolution and development is something that very few people in relative can contain in their own way of, in their own mind. In the way of being, you don't really have a choice. It's what you're given kind of to develop with in life, and you have to find your way as a blue storm in the world, which is challenging from my understanding. For every blue storm that I've met until now, they've always said it's challenging to find the way in this world when everything is all the time changing.
Mhm.
And then you say, wow, these people that see life as all the time changing, this is quite a rare thing. Most people are trying to hold on to what's not changing and focusing their awareness onto what's not changing. So I love it how you bring this perspective, and it teaches me a lot also to look at things from another way. And I think really Blue Storm individuals are teachers everywhere you go all the time by how you experience life. But I feel a strong mission or calling to reflect back to Blue Storm people that it's a very special role you've been giving in this time of great change to walk around the world as a constant change, and
Mm.
and reflecting that out to the people that things are constantly changing all the time, not just in wild times like these, that things are really changing in a very clear way that everybody can see.
Mm.
Um, and if I connect this to the resonant tone, so maybe I can say, tell me how you feel if this resonates for you, that the resonant tone is this time in the wave that it gets clear for a moment what's happening in this movement. Like, what is this movement, where it's coming from, and where it is right now, and kind of where it wants to go. Like you said, looking from the deck of the boat from at the whole tendency of the ocean in this moment. And I think for me, when I look at it this way, so it kind of it reassures me that when I live my life according to the waves, at some very important point, somewhere where I can really get lost if I'm not aware, I will be received the information, or I will be given the information that will help me recognize where I am in the movement, and kind of reconnect myself to the higher purpose, to the ground level, and kind of realign towards the second part of the year, or the continuing of the wave, or towards the build up from your perspective to the planetary, which is where the wave is peaking. So it's kind of like, okay, so from this point, I can see that there's a peak over there, and I'm heading towards that peak. And I know that after that peak, there will be a liberation and it will break. And I don't know what will happen then, but I do know there will be a liberation. So it's kind of like, for me, again, it gives me this order that I can rest upon.
I think it's really fun to like almost hear that we have different psychologies. Um, like I'm just picking up on how I think that even though I said some people are like, life is all good, and others are like, life is bad, and then there's a continuum in between. I'm much closer to life is bad, and I think you're closer to life is good, right? I'm much more aware of the anguish of being sentient, being stuck in a human body to deal with human karma at this juncture. It's pretty heavy. And so I'm just laughing because I don't think of the breaking of a wave as liberation. I think of it as falling back to earth, when you're like, "Oh, I'm
Mm.
going to heaven. I'm going to meet my maker who I love, this creator, this force, this wonder." And then the spectral tone includes liberated feelings, but it's like, um, no, you're still alive and you're going to come back and do some more karma, another cycle. So that's the future for everyone listening. But I would just say I brought it in because I experience the resonant moon as kind of being a bubble, or at the channel, doesn't have windows. So you just get I get a break from, what I've been working on maybe for the year to date, and I get to just feel infused with eternity and the the soulfulness of non-sentient influence, just like, oh, there's divinity. We kind of pick it up in the electric moon, so we know that we're going to be connected to divinity the whole wave spell somehow. How can I best be of service is like divinity coming in and showing you a purpose that is for the greatest good. And I think the resonant is another check-in, but more like I agree that in the middle of the 13, we really need to reiterate that we have a divine purpose and to feel it. And I don't think of it as very cognitive for me, like, oh yeah, this sorts out my year. I just feel like it's a bit of a vacation from sorting out my own existence here and a reminder that I'm not just sentient, like, oh, wait, I love this. I mean, we're not going to talk about any current events, but just imagine the current events being tedious and shocking and angering and overwhelming. And then the resonant moon to me being like, ah, you know, and so it is with human beings, always creating disturbances for themselves and others. But here I am feeling something much calmer and higher vibration coming from the divine realm. And then why is it a psychic time or an intuitive time? Because I think being resonant indicates that. I just think that when you're a vessel consciously walking around feeling like, wow, I just have something more holy in my space, that's all that intuition is just channeling a non-intellectual insight, a spiritual insight. So I think it's kind of fun to be in the resonant moon if you like being psychic, if you're like, well, I suddenly am not, I'm picking up on a lot of subtle cues and this is fun.
Mm.
I think that's part of the celebration.
Nice. I like that too.
And that you gave this nice, I don't know if anyone cares that you're like offering more about what a blue storm person is like. I mean, I feel gratified because I just got a mini reading by a wisdom keeper and I appreciate it. And I do think blue storm is a hard lifetime and a powerful one, and that's good. So is white mirror. Anyone listening who's a white mirror, or you're listening to Alon who is one, white mirror is a very specific tribe that is a illustration of the pyramids that the Maya built. And I think that is very symmetrical and different than a live action wave. Like they were building mountains, and mountains are factually waveforms in granite on our planet. But when they built one, it was sort of immobile, and you walk up the stairs and then you walk down, and that's very symmetrical. You don't walk up and jump off. And so I think that there is a lot of reasoning, which is similar to resonance, in how you are perceiving things from that white mirror ordering. It's not just ordering like, oh, well, white mirrors are orderly. It's about this very sacred temple that was excruciating to build, giant blocks of stone that somehow men, slaves perhaps, constructed and then became the place where everyone could bear witness to a human sacrifice ritual. And that is very austere and powerful as a day sign to be born into and a perspective that we're sharing here.
Yeah.
The big one.
Yeah. Thanks for this reflection. It also gives me more, gives me a gift of seeing it from a new way and seeing myself from a new way. And I think it's not a coincidence that specifically in this time that we meet in this moon, it's kind of like the resonating between the two of us is also happening because we've been doing this very intuitively and naturally up until now, and we've been building up some kind of a movement, a relation, and now it's resonating here between us, and it's very. I like it, I like the clear reflections as I can see them. I like it. And the more we talk about it, the more I'm able to connect clearer to the feeling of the resonant tone that I carry with myself. That when I'm meeting resonant people as a white mirror, I can really relate with their frequency and then reflect it back to them. And as you were talking before about this feeling of being able to, I don't remember the exact words used, but kind of like being in the channel without seeing the windows outwardly towards what will. I saw windows like into the future and into the past, and then suddenly there's just being in this channel like like a pillar that's just there's stairs going up and stairs going down like spiral stairs, and
Mm.
um, and it's kind of like, okay, now I know I'm connecting higher to the celestial, and this is a part of what's just happening now, but it's also I'm coming from somewhere, and I'll also be coming down from this spiral and moving onwards. Um, and the resonant tone, especially this time of the year, I'm feeling very a lot of clarity surrounding the processes that I'm experiencing in my life, and I can really see how everything is working together in a very vivid way to all the time. And now it's just very clear, like clairvoyantly clear, how all the processes are interlinked and working together. And I don't really need to do anything, just kind of let it flow through me and observe it, like in meditation. And I really enjoy this feeling. And I can notice it's really I know the feeling of channeling. I have this quality, and I do it in very specific moments when I feel it's necessary, and I don't offer it so much as an offering, but I do use it as one of the tools I use to help people and guide people, and also help myself in moments that I feel I'm in need of clarity. And I can recognize that when I'm enabling myself to tap into this frequency of channeling, it feels very calm inside. And I remember there was a time when I was giving my teaching that I would host meetings every 13 days online, teaching about the wave spell that's ending and the wave spell that's about to begin. I do it usually at the end of one wave spell, and I would offer a channeling there. I would always tap in and kind of give a message, a short message from this moment for the people that were there with me, kind of have an insight into the process we're going into and the process that we're completing every wave. And I remember there were a few times that I tapped in and I noticed it was so chaotic that I just couldn't. And I even said out loud, like, sorry, I can't right now. It's just, it's not working. It's not possible. So I really noticed the contrast between being in a channel state and not being in a channel state. And I can really recognize that this whole, up until now, this moon, I've been feeling like there's this flow going through me and I don't need to do much. And things are coming together and showing up as to kind of like the main channel that everything in my life is surrounding. And it's really a sensation. I'm noticing I'm really trying to put it in words, but it's such a specific vibration and a feeling that it's kind of like the exact dimension that words can't grasp, like meditation. You can try to explain what you experience in a meditation. It's very hard to, like, you use like I'm doing now, a lot of words to describe something so simple and clear that once you start putting words onto it, it stops being so simple and clear.
Mm. I
It's
agree.
this it's this fine frequency, and I think I'm explaining this now for our listeners to try to give them the feeling of, from the perspective of teaching, and what is the resonant tone and what it feels like to be attuned with the resonant tone, and how it could feel during this month to journey through the resonant moon.
Well, and also when I teach or podcast, I just assume that I'm getting a batch of people that are already really into certain frameworks such as channeling or meditating, meaning they are intuitive people. They're drawn to this esoteric, practically undiscovered spiritual path because they're already seeking something that feels like heavenly in origin and historically so. And so it's really easy to believe that anyone who's following this calendar already has been to meditation retreats or had a Buddhist practice at some point in their lives or et cetera, et cetera. And then I just point out, like, this is the time when that's totally supported and easy and unavoidable. And I was thinking, like, well, what would I say to someone about this moon? I would say you can't miss out on it being especially kind of air-rated and psychic and like astounding that you kind of feel the pulse of divinity more than the human, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't think you cannot notice a frequency shift and that people often attribute it to being a new year. I have a new perspective. I feel this new like spaciousness. And so I think it all matches. But the way I would want to sort of, I always say to people, like, if you're really enjoying a tone, just remember it's going to end, like it isn't a new year and all of a sudden you're a meditator all the time. Like we see this fall away in February over and over because we shift to something else in the 13 moons. That's my perspective. I'm not like a zealot, but I live by this calendar. So I just tend to assign that explanation. Like, yeah, you had your resonant moment, but then we have to integrate it with real life. And it gets clunkier, just like leaving a meditation retreat or a silent retreat, you
Mm.
know, like you get into that space close to your sense of the grand Godhead, and then it's like it's interrupted.
Yeah.
Um, it's interrupted by, you know, everyday reality. And I wonder if then it's best just to tell people, like, just really enjoy this if you like this spaciousness, because it's, again, it's a break of a kind, it's a gift. It's a reorientation to what's really important, but I just find that very few of us can live unless we are truly monastic, which has become increasingly different in an internet age, in a cell phone age where every frequency is sort of instant. Pulling away and being introspective and alone with quote unquote God is really harder. And this is the time when that is presented as easy, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I really relate with that. And still saying that, I can reflect on my own experience and notice how in this time it's very clear to me that it's just like I can just take a step to the right and I'll be in this easiness. And at the same time, in order for me to cross the line into that, to taking that step to the right, it's still on the human level a challenge to choose to go inside and to be in this observation mode than to be in that outwardly distractive,
Mm.
trying to soothe the chaos, the inner chaos. But it's definitely, I can see the choice very, very clear right now. And it is true, I'm actually making the choice to be in tune with the divine more frequently in this moon than any of the moons before. It's very clear to me, very, very clear in my personal experience. So we're approaching the end of this broadcast, and I'm wondering, in continuation to what you were saying, what would you offer as a guidance or a tip to people listening to us um, around this moon, if you would be approaching it from this direction?
I think just to indulge it as best you can. Like knowledge is power or orientation. So if you know this is the resonant moon and you believe us that it's a really good time to feel like you're attuned and inspired, spirit's running through you, you're channeling spirit, so your body is hollow of a bunch of other predilections and is for channeling spirit right now to just see if you can notice that. And the more I follow the calendar, the more life sets me up to have more space in a time like this, not cluttered with things. And honestly, if you really work hard in the rhythmic tone and the rhythmic moon, you kind of clear the decks so you have a bunch of spaciousness. The errands and the to-do lists and the upkeep was like driven by the rhythmic energy of organizing. And now, you've arrived at a destination where you have very few belongings. And so maybe that could be a future
Mhm.
plan for how to come into the resonant moon. If you're already in it, then I agree just to enjoy. If you're someone who likes this frequency, just to enjoy it, you deserve it. One example I'll give is like I still check the newspaper headlines on my phone every 3 hours, but my perspective on what I'm seeing, what I'm reading is way different. It's more like, you know, there's there's air and something holy between me and the information. So I'm not like anxiety driven by what I'm seeing. I'm just like, oh, here we go, humans and the things we do. And it doesn't make me better than humans. It's just a moment's breath and pause from being so upset about what humans do, scared about what humans do, and instead just see the big picture, like feel the big picture. Actually, it's not intellectual. It's like, I'm being held, and you are, listener, by divinity as we move through, yeah, these weird times of reckoning.
Mm, beautifully said. So I think this is a good time to conclude this meeting. And I'll remind our listeners that whoever wants to learn more from you, you're offering a very generous podcast, Natural Time, on Spotify. And a lot of the information you teach and have taught is up on your website, resonanttruth.com. And I too discovered you through your podcast, and I'm very thankful for it. And I'm very thankful for the chance of meeting you every month and learning together and sharing our perspectives from opposite sides of the planet and opposite, like we got to tap into today in observing the world through your blue storm and 13 moons through your blue storm perspective. It's I feel it's really teaching me the teaching of this time that we're living in, and so I'm even more in gratitude for that. So thank you, and I wish you lots of moments of resting in this deep possibility of being connected to the divine while observing this crazy times and events that we're witnessing. And I'm looking forward to next time. We're starting to transcend into the more advanced part of the wave spell. And there's a lot in there waiting for our listeners to discover through us as well. So, whoever's listening to us, I
That's
really invite you
true.
to keep following.
Yes, enjoy this seeming sense of rest and vacation because there is much activity and intensity that is built into this 13 moon wave to come. And I have
Yes.
to just end like I always have something very authentic in the moment that I want to put in there. And none of this feels rehearsed ever, but like it occurred to me that, the big teachers that I came up through were Jose Arguelles, who's a blue spectral monkey, and Eden Sky, who makes the most predominant calendar, and she's a red self-existing skywalker. And while we may not present as like luminaries of that popularity, I mean, I've been teaching for so long that I consider myself an expert, and it is important to notice I'm a blue overtone storm or that you're a white overtone mirror, and that what we teach and understand about the calendar comes through these particular tribes. But guys listening, I think without being self-aggrandizing, they are two of the most fundamental specifically for this path day signs, the tribes, like White Mirror and Blue Storm. I mean, I think they're penultimate, and I'd be happy to refer you to my work to see why. But I'm not saying, oh, you're lucky, but it just we are strong in our being situated within the calendar to be connected to this ancient Mayan material and its ferocity. It's really singular strength. You know, it's not like a easygoing path, but it is a powerful one. So
Very
I'm
much,
glad we're
yes.
doing this together because I feel like we should demonstrate these perspectives for more people.
Yes, me too. Totally agree with you. So thank you very much, and we will be seeing each other soon.
Yes, everyone. See you real soon.
Yep.
Thank you.